Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This will be going over the Week 10 waiver wire, so I'll highlight players across each position, players that I'd be looking to add to my roster ahead of Week 10. If any of you guys have specific ad drop questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Questions about who you can afford to drop to get these players. Happy if you guys have my feedback there. If you have fab questions as well, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. A lot of players to talk about here. Nobody that really stands out as like a must add that's commonly available, but a lot of usable, like decent streaming options, guys, that we can pick up and use going forward that I think can at least boost our rosters a little bit. So, should be a lot of fun here, a lot of players to talk about. We'll start with the quarterbacks and then we'll just move forward from there. So, yeah, with that, let's just get into it. Starting things off with the quarterback position, I'll highlight Bo Nix again. He just continues to run enough to get it done. Obviously, it wasn't a great game for the Broncos offense this last week, but even with that, Bo Nix was usable enough. Caught a receiving touchdown, so that's not going to happen every week, but he'll probably be on the other end of it more often than not. He's getting it done enough that you can trust him. Tough matchup this next week against the Chiefs. I wouldn't be looking to play him, but I think Bo Nix is a guy that could be on rosters if you want to go back and forth between a couple quarterbacks. Bo Nix should have plenty more good games going forward. Russell Wilson continues to play really well. Coming off the bye, they play the Commanders in Week 10. I expect him to be super involved again. Maybe a little bit healthier. 2 more weeks to heal from that calf injury. Maybe he runs a little bit more going forward. Potentially, the Steelers could add a receiver tomorrow, as well at the trade deadline. There's lots of reasons for Russ to be pointing up right now. The Commanders aren't a defense that necessarily scares me, so Russ is a guy you could consider streaming if you want to. Matthew Stafford has all his weapons back. Has a great matchup against Miami in Week 10. I think Stafford with Kupp, Puka, Kyron, obviously, Demarcus Robinson playing really well. You can play Stafford if you want to. And then Justin Herbert, not great this week, tough matchup. But after that, you get Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Atlanta 3 weeks in a row. That's 3 weeks that I'd feel really good about streaming Justin Herbert, and he's looked really good lately. They're throwing the ball a lot more. I think Justin Herbert might be my favorite ad of these guys, especially if you don't need to stream for this week specifically. Moving on to the running back position here, I got to mention Chase Brown. I highly doubt he's available, but just take a look. If he's available, he's a top 15 running back the rest of the way, honestly, in my mind. So Chase Brown just shouldn't be on waiver wires anywhere, especially if Zach Moss is going to indeed miss extended time. Rico Dowdle, he's going to be super involved for Dallas. Not going to be a super great offense going forward with Dak out, but Rico Dowdle's going to be really important to the offense. It just seems super clear that he is the best running back on their roster. They need to get him more involved. I think he's going to be a guy that we can use as a low end RB2 going forward. Ray Davis just keeps looking really good. I think we've got to be looking at him as a premier handcuff to James Cook and someone that you could flex in like a desperation RB2 situation. Not someone that I'd be thrilled to be starting at all, but he's a good player. He's making the most of his touches. He could get some goal line work at some point. We saw him in at the goal line at once or a couple times this week. A guy that's a good player makes me a little bit less optimistic about James Cook going forward as well, but I do think that Ray Davis needs to be rostered. Jalen Warren getting more and more involved, coming off that injury, had another 2 weeks off the bye to be healed up, and the schedule for the Steelers gets a lot tougher going forward. They've been able to get ahead and lean on Najee most of the season, really, and they got a lot tougher games coming up. They got their whole division, so 2 with the Ravens, 2 with the Bengals, 2 with the Browns, and then they have the Commanders, Chiefs, and Eagles. Those are their final 9 games. It's going to be a lot of high scoring, a lot of back and forth in those games. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more, and Jalen Warren is the guy that we want to use in those obvious passing situations. I think especially in full PPR, Warren's a guy that we can trust going forward as a decent RB2. Tyler Algier, premier handcuff. He's one injury away from being a top 5 running back, top 10 at least, so Algier needs to be rostered for sure. After that, it's all the other handcuffs for me too. You got Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Kamani Vidal, Braylon Allen, Roshan Johnson. I'm sure I forgot other ones, but there should be no like obvious handcuffs on waivers at this point in the season. These are guys that are all one injury away from being significant upgrades to your roster, and they need to be rostered for you. And then Khalil Herbert, just want to mention him, potential trade candidate here at the trade deadline. Lots of running back needy teams. I think Khalil Herbert's a guy that could easily get moved, and I think Khalil Herbert's a good player. So if you're in like a really deep league, you could look at Khalil Herbert as someone to at least add and just see what happens at the deadline. You'll probably know by the time you run through your waivers. So if he doesn't get traded, I'm not interested there. But if he does, like Herbert's at least someone that could get involved on a new roster here. Next up at the wide receiver position, we've got the GOAT, Cedric Tillman. He's the wide receiver 1 over the last 3 weeks. That's a crazy stat to say, but he really is. He keeps getting it done. Scored a touchdown this last week. Jameis did not look good at all, but they're going to throw the ball way more. The ceiling for this entire passing or receiving core is just way higher with Jameis playing. There are talks of them potentially moving David Njoku at the deadline here. If that were to happen, Cedric Tillman would get even more involved. Tillman's a guy that is the clear wide receiver 1 in this offense. He's the guy they look to near the red zone. He looks good. He looks the part. I don't think he looks special, but I think he looks like a good player. He's the clear wide receiver 1 on an offense led by Jameis Winston, who's willing to make mistakes, willing to throw the ball downfield. Tillman's a guy that we can certainly play as like a solid wide receiver 3 going forward. After that, though, we got Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. I think at least one of them is probably going to matter. It's certainly possible that they both sort of eat into each other. Makes it tough to know which one to start every single week. But this offense is good enough to support two wide receivers. We've seen that with Debo and Ayuk. Debo is certainly prone to missing time over the course of his career, as is George Kittle. There's going to be opportunity going forward for these guys, and I think they've both flashed. I think if I had to pick one, I would pick Juwan Jennings, but Pearsall, first round talent, had the bye to get more acclimated. We'll see what happens after this week. Really keep an eye on Pearsall as well, because it's common to see that post-bye rookie bump, and especially for a guy who didn't really have training camp because he got shot. Like, Pearsall could certainly be involved after the bye here, so keep an eye on him for sure. Quentin Johnston, gotta mention him. He just looks important to the offense. The passing volume in LA is up. I got to highlight that most of his production came on a busted coverage, had like a 70-yard receiving touchdown. That's not something that I'd expect to happen every single week, but he is the deep threat in this offense. He's fast. He's doing a lot with the ball in his hands after the catch. He looks better this year than he did last year. So Johnston's a guy that I think you can play. It's like a low-end flex play every week, and there's obvious upside with his speed. The offense here, Justin Herbert playing really well. I think Johnston does need to be on rosters. Demario Douglas, he's a guy you can flex. Like, he's just looks to be the clear wide receiver one in New England. Not someone that I'm expecting a lot out of going forward, but he's involved. Drake May is obviously elevating the floor of this offense, so Demario Douglas should be on rosters, and is someone that you can play if you need to. Xavier Legette has a chance to be the wide receiver one in Carolina the rest of the way. I didn't list him, but Jalen Coker also should be on this list. Adam Thielen as well. There's a lot of ambiguity in this Carolina passing offense, but I think at least one of them is probably going to be fantasy relevant. Like, Bryce Young didn't look great, but they actually won the game. They're trending up a little bit. I think these guys need to be on rosters. Legette's a second-round pick. Actually, he was a late first-round pick, I believe. He was the last pick in the first round. He's a talented player. Not a special player the way I see it, but he's getting the job done. He's involved enough. If Adam Thielen does indeed get traded at the deadline, which is certainly something that looks like it could happen, Legette will be a really important target in this offense, and there will be some value there. So Legette needs to be rostered. Jerry Jeudy, like Cedric Tillman, has just seen the needle go way up here after Jameis Winston took over. Continues to be involved. Caught 7 passes this last week. You can flex Jerry Jeudy if you need to. And then Marion McLeod, just sort of highlighting him. He'd be pretty usable if Drake London ends up missing time with that hip pointer. He'd be the wide receiver 2 in the offense. He looks decent. Shifty guy, does a lot with the ball in his hands after the catch. I think you could flex McLeod if you needed to, if Drake London does miss time. We got the tight end position here. Primary ad obviously should be Mike Gesicki here. He's playing really well, and he should have more volume going forward with the injury to Eric All. You hate to see it. All was a guy I liked a lot, especially Dynasty, a guy that I think was trending up. But with the torn ACL, Mike Gesicki is going to be a really important part of this offense. Eric All was blocking really well, so they're going to play their other tight ends like Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample. They'll get on the field, but Gesicki's going to be the primary pass-catching tight end here. T. Higgins continues to struggle to stay on the field. Jermaine Burton is missing walkthroughs. He's not showing up. He wasn't active this last week. There's opportunity here for Gesicki in an offense that's playing really well. The defense is not playing really well, so there's certainly going to be opportunity there for them to need to put up a lot of points. Great matchup this week against Baltimore. I think Gesicki is certainly a guy that you could play as your tight end this week. Taysom Hill, kind of a joke, but he could be the wide receiver 1 and the RB2 in New Orleans. Like, it's not necessarily an overstatement. They're missing all of their wide receivers. Shaheed, Olave, likely to miss this week. Their running backs, Jamal Williams, Kedra Miller, they're not playing. Taysom Hill is really involved in this offense. He was actually pretty good for fantasy this week. He's going to get utilized near the goal line. Hill's a guy that just needs to be rostered, and if you're desperate at tight end, you can play him every single week. Jonnu Smith, it's not sexy, but they're manufacturing touches for him. Actually has more fantasy points on the season than Jalen Waddle. That sucks to say, but it's true. He's a guy that they're manufacturing touches for. Throwing tight end screens near the goal line is interesting for him too. So I think he's a good player. He'll get 3-4 catches, probably 40 yards every week, shot to score. I think you can play him. Then Hunter Henry, just a weekly reminder that he's usable. Like, he's a good player, someone that you can certainly start if you need to. He might be the number 1 target in New England. He probably just shouldn't be on waivers at this point, but I got to mention him. And last, but certainly not least, we got some defenses to highlight here. No particular order. These are the defenses that I would be looking to stream this week. So we got 7 of them, so hopefully you can find one of these guys available. The Giants, they get to play the Panthers this week. That's obviously great. The Panthers look better this last week on offense, but I'm still not buying that they're a good offense. And the Giants have a really great pass rush, so the Panthers should be a really quality matchup there. The Bears, still an elite defense, still held the passing game in check, obviously, against the Cardinals this last week. Against New England, I feel pretty confident they'll be able to get the job done. Probably bounce back for the Bears this week. I think the Bears are a great play. The Chiefs might be available, even though they're a really great defense, because they have the Tampa Bay matchup this week. I think that you can look to play the Chiefs this week against Denver. Not really worried about that. Minnesota, they get to play the Jaguars this week. Jaguars looked awful on offense this last week. They're missing a lot of players. The Vikings are a great defense. You can play them. The Falcons play the Saints. The Saints are a shell of a roster at this point. It feels like a solid option there. The Chargers get the Titans. That's a great option as well. Titans have been pretty bad on offense over all season, no matter who's at the quarterback. Lots of opportunity there for the defense. And then the Eagles play the Cowboys this week without Dak Prescott. I feel pretty good about that matchup for them as well. That'll do it for the waiver wire in week 10. Up next, I'll go over some trade targets. I'll highlight guys that have really favorable playoff schedules coming up, guys that I'd be looking to buy low on, guys that I'd be looking to sell high on. So stay tuned for that video. It might be split into two, so really fun making those videos. If you guys have any specific trade questions, that's a great video to watch and then comment on there. Beyond that, though, if you guys made it this far in the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. If you have any specific questions, let me know as well. Love interacting with you guys on here. And yeah, should be a lot of fun. Lots more content. We got trade targets, starts and sits, weekly live streams. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And other than that, good luck on waivers. Talk to you guys later with the trade video, and let's get ready to roll in week 10. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.